Not counting detectives.
No, well, let's count the detectives too. Let's count, they're all LAPD officers. Let's count everybody.
Probably 28.
About 28 police officers. And basically, at this point, these 28 officers, at 6:35, the first call of the coroner had not gone out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
The criminal list had not been called.
I don't know that.
Well, let's look at this and let's see when, get at the log, when Fung was called.
I don't. That would only tell us when he arrived, sir. It wouldn't tell me when he called.
All right, well, that's okay. Your counsel's absolutely correct, Your Honor. Let's look and see when Fung arrived.
Well, objection, Your Honor, that's only as Bundy.
Well, I want to see, I'm talking about Bundy at this point.
All right, overruled. All right, overruled. If he can refresh his recollection from this, yes or no?
Well, I believe the first time it shows him on the log is arriving at...
Wait. Do you know from your own recollection when the criminalist, Mr. Fung, arrived at the Bundy address?
No, I don't.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Only in what it says that he arrived.
No, I'm not asking you what the document says. I'm asking, does that refresh your recollection?
No.
All right, thank you. Next question.
Did Fung ever come while you were there till 10 o'clock that morning?
I saw Mr. Fung there during that daytime, yes.
No,
I do not know what time it was that I first saw him.
But you were there off times. You were there off and on during the day, right?
Yes, sir.
And you left, according to the log, by 10 o'clock a.m. to go someplace, right?
Yes.
Fung had not arrived at that point. Is that correct?
I don't recall seeing him.
All right. You saw him later in the day when you came back to the location. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Because the coroner came at about 9:10. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And when the coroner came, Fung was not there. Isn't that correct?
I don't know if Fung was there.
You don't remember seeing him, do you?
I don't remember seeing him.
All right. These 28 LAPD officers who were there, though, they had various and sundry responsibilities. Is that correct?
Most of them did.
In the course of the people that you talked to that morning, did you ever, either when you came back at 6:35 or earlier, talk to any of the officers there about trying to establish the time of death of these two bodies?
No, sir.
Now, when you came back that afternoon, did you see Miss Marcia Clark at the scene there? At Bundy or Rockingham? At Bundy?
I don't recall if I ever saw Miss Clark at the Bundy location. I believe I may have seen her at the Rockingham location.
No, would it refresh your recollection to look at the crime scene log regarding Bundy?
No, sir.
It won't refresh your recollection?
I don't recall seeing Marcia Clark at the Bundy location.
Do you ever recall seeing her there talking to Mark Furman outside?
At the Bundy location?
At Rockingham? Did you see
As
her
I
talking?
said, I saw her at the Rockingham location, not
Okay.
at the Bundy location.
All right. And what time was that if you saw her at the Rockingham location?
I would have no idea of remembering that
Would it
time.
refresh your recollection to see the crime scene log regarding that?
No, it would not tell me what time I saw them.
All right, but you remember seeing her, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you know, although I know you were no longer the investigating officer in the case, how long that the Bundy location remained a crime scene before the tapes were taken down?
Yes, I think it was right around that. I'd have to look at the log to be sure, but I think it was around 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon.
All right, would it refresh your recollection to see the
Yes,
log?
sir.
Okay. And I want you to look at the log first so you can tell us how long it had remained a crime scene. See if that refreshes your recollection, sir.
Well, it's 3 something in the afternoon. It's not very clear. I don't know if that's, I have no idea what those numbers are. But 1,500 is 3 in the afternoon, so it was after that.
And it purports to remember that sometime after 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
And when it was no longer a crime scene, tell us what that means.
Means that the yellow tape is taken down. It's no longer an LAPD crime scene, and we no longer have anything to do with it. It, basically, we leave it.
And people are free to come and go at that scene at that point?
Yes, we no longer have any control over that crime scene.
And if evidence had not been gathered by that point, there's a great chance that evidence could be somehow compromised, isn't that? Well, let me finish the question first, Your Honor, to see if maybe she won't object. I doubt it, but let me see. If the crime scene was determined not to be a crime scene sometime after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and if evidence had not been collected by that point, was collected, let's say, 3 weeks later, on July 3rd, there is a good chance, is it not, that that evidence may have been compromised by people who were free to come and go on those premises after the crime scene was released. Isn't that a fair statement?
Sustained.
Okay. Do you know when the blood was washed away or washed down from this particular crime scene?
No, sir.
Now, you described, I think, yesterday that at some point the press appeared out there about 7:30 in the morning. Is that correct? On June 13th.
Somewhere later in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere around that time.
All right. And so when they arrived at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, did you see them with cameras, as the press will oftentimes have?
Yes, sir.
And did you see them taking pictures?
I wasn't paying any attention to them.
But do you think they were taking pictures
I would assume they would be.
with some powerful lenses?
Wasn't paying attention to their lenses.
All right. So from 7:30 on, thereabouts, when the press arrived, you were aware they were there and there was some interest in what was going on in this particular crime scene. Is that correct?
The interest rate was escalating rapidly.
All right. And so between 7:30 a.m. and then 10 o'clock, when you first took your leave from the Bundy location, there was an increasing press presence. Is that a fair statement?
There was a tremendous press interest.
At some point after you and Furman came back to the Bundy location, did you see Van Adder and Lang back at that location?
Tom Lang showed back up shortly thereafter.
And do you know what time it was he got back, approximately?
6:40, 6:35, 6:40, 6:45, somewhere in that area.
A short time after you got back, right?
Yes.
And that should be indicated on this log, should it not be? That he had left and gone to Rockingham and then came back?
If it was done absolutely properly and he checked out and checked back in, then it should be there.
If he didn't do that, then it won't be on here, right?
That's true.
Now, what, if anything, did you do between 7 o'clock a.m., after you made this first call to the coroner? You were assisting Tom, and we heard that yesterday. Did you do anything at that scene with regard to establishing the time of death between the time that you concluded your phone call with the coroner's office shortly after 6:50 in the morning till the time you made the next call at 8:08 in the morning?
I did nothing in that crime scene investigation whatsoever, Mr. Cochran.
All right. And when you made the second call to the coroner at 8:08 and prior to the coroner's coming at 9:10, same answer would pertain? You did nothing?
I did nothing.
And at this point, you were assisting, as you've indicated to us, Tom Lang in getting the coroner there, right?
When he asked me to make a phone call, I did for him.
All right. And then at some point, you saw representatives from the coroner's office arrive at the Bundy location. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we've established that was about 9:10 in the morning. And do you know the names of the people who came out?
I know that the female investigator, I believe her name was Ratcliffe, I believe.
All
And I do not know who the assistant was.
There were two people, is that correct?
Yes,
A male and a female?
yes.
Were they both African Americans? Do you recall?
I don't know that.
But there were two people who came out from the coroner's
Yes.
office. Do you recall, were you still present when the bodies were moved from that location, sir?
I was still at the Bundy location, yes.
When the bodies were moved?
Yes.
Can you tell us what time they were moved, sir?
No.
Would a review of the log at all refresh your recollection in that regard?
I don't know who put the entrance into the log. I do not know what time the bodies were removed.
You left at 10 o'clock?
The log says I left sometime at 10 o'clock.
All right, well, when did you leave? We know the
I
log
don't
isn't always
recall
accurate.
what time I left. I wasn't looking at my clock every time I left and went and did something and looked at it when I came back.
All right, what was your best estimate of the time you left for any appreciable period of time that morning, sir?
I would have no way of knowing.
Okay, what is your best estimate of the time the bodies were taken out of there by the coroner's office?
I don't recall that either.
Do you recall seeing Fung there at a time when the bodies were still there?
As I previously stated, I don't recall ever seeing Fong at the Bundy location.
Yes.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor, in effort to avoid a sidebar?
Certainly.
May I talk to counsel? Defendants 1027, I've shown it to counsel. This one. I'd like to approach Detective Phillips, if I might, Your Honor.
You may.
Phillips, I have in my hand, what's the photograph of the Bundy crime scene. I'm going to place it before you. I want you to take a look at this photograph. First of all, I want you to look at it. I'm going to ask you some questions about that photograph.
Yes?
You recognize, first of all, the crime scene depicted there?
Yes?
And I want you to look, and I want you to see if you can tell us whether or not you recognize the two coroner's representatives that you were just talking about.
I assume, yes, I do.
And do you see them? Can you point them out for me?
I believe this is one here, and I believe this is the other one here.
The gentleman, and on the photograph, he's pointed to a lady, Your Honor, an African-American lady, and a gentleman bending over with in some kind of a blue jumpsuit. Is that correct?
Yes?
All right. Do you see anybody else in that photograph you recognize?
I believe I recognize these two gentlemen here.
Okay, he's pointing to two gentlemen in the foreground of the picture, and let's take the picture, and the one on the right is who?
This gentleman here,
Yes, sir.
this is an Officer Carson Pierce.
Okay, and the one to his left, is that an officer?
I believe that's Sergeant Ed Palmer.
Ed Palmer?
Yes, sir?
All right. There's somebody's back here. Can you recognize that person?
No, sir.
All right. There's a person here with gray hair and some kind of a white shirt. Do you recognize that as the photographer Rokar?
It appears to be him, yes.
All right, that's the photographer, right?
Yes.
Okay, and up here, who is this person here with apparently something in his hands?
It appears to look like Dennis Fung.
So this is the crime scene from that morning of June 13th, 1994, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that the coroners are still there at that point. Would you agree with me that the bodies are still there at that point?
Objection.
Well, let me phrase it. Let me phrase the question. One of the responsibilities of the coroner is to remove the bodies. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
And generally, when the coroner removes the bodies, they then leave, don't they?
Well, once the bodies are removed, they may stick around for a while to do an inventory report or
I understand that.
talk to an investigator for a short time, but they leave shortly thereafter.
Because they come to get the body and they take the body away, don't they?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this photograph, the two coroner's representatives are still at the scene, at least in this photograph. Is that
Yes,
correct?
sir.
All right. Then I'd like to show this on the Elmo for me. This is for jury. This is 1027. Playing 1027 as good as we can. All right, so that the jury didn't have the benefit of our close-up discussion, can you step out so you can see this photograph from out here? I'm sorry to inconvenience you. And I'll use my pointer here. Who is this person here?
Carson Pierce?
That's a police officer
Yes.
from West Los Angeles Division?
Yes.
The officer to his immediate left, who is that?
Sergeant Ed Palmer?
Do you know who this person is here?
No, I don't.
This gentleman here bending over.
Appears to be one of the coroner's technicians.
And there's some writing on the back of his jumpsuit.
Yes.
You know what that writing says?
Could probably say coroner.
This lady here, that's a lady, is it not?
I believe that's Miss Radcliffe.
Because she's also in the coroner's office.
Yes.
This man over here, in the white hair,
The photographer named Wilcar?
that's Rokar, the photographer.
Yes.
You know this person is blocked by the tree.
No, sir.
This man here, who is that?
Dennis Fung?
What does Fung apparently have in his hand?
I have no idea.
Does that appear to you to be a bag of some kind?
I have no idea what he's holding, sir.
Does he have anything on his hands, you know?
I can't see that either.
How many people are in that crime scene there we depicted there altogether?
And that's vague.
What?
In
Oh,
or out?
well, I'm asking how many people are depicted in this picture in this scene.
Well, that's
Hold on.
misleading.
All right. Okay, let's count them then. How many do you see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah,
that
objection,
correct?
Your Honor. At least 2 of these people, if not 3, are on the sidewalk.
Well, Your Honor, I can't tell that from the picture. The
That's
picture speaks for
exactly-
itself.
No, it
Well,
doesn't.
we want to, may I have a moment, Your Honor? Would you agree that there are at least 8 individuals somewhere in and around the Bundy crime scene between the sidewalk and the area where the bodies were found?
Well, it's hard to tell whether the Carson Pierce and Ed Palmer are standing on the grass area or in the street, but they're in front of the crime scene, yes.
Yes, as I said, in front of the crime scene. You agree there are 8 people depicted there?
In that total picture, there's 8 people.
Yes. Did you see this scene while you were still there?
This particular scene?
Yes, this particular scene. Okay. Did you see this? Did you see that scene?
I don't recall seeing that scene.
All right. With regard to crime scene preservation, and as an experienced homicide detective, do you try to keep the numbers of people out of the scene or keep the numbers as small as possible? Keep them tracking up the area?
That's the ultimate yes.
That's the desired result?
Yes?
All the people, the individuals who came on that particular crime scene on that morning, were there gloves available if they wanted to pick up anything at the scene that morning, if you know?
I have no idea. I was not involved in the actual crime scene preparation of any kind with Tom Nolan, or Tom Lang.
Tom Lang. Now, as an experienced homicide investigator, I presume you have some kind of procedures that pertain from whether you're in robbery homicide in West Los Angeles. Isn't that correct?
What's that question,
You have some
sir?
kind of procedures that obtain whether or not you're in West Los Angeles or in robbery homicide downtown. Isn't that correct?
We have the same systems, yes.
Okay, and you have the same availability of resources generally, don't you?
They can get a lot more resources than we can, but we have the same
All right.
basic equipment they have.
For instance, if you wanted gloves to sanitize the collection of evidence, would you have that in West Los Angeles?
We have gloves in the trunks of our homicide vehicles.
And would they have that also downtown at robbery homicide?
I would have no idea. I've never worked there.
But you would expect they would have gloves, would you not? If you have it and they have more resources than you do?
I would assume that those homicide detectives have gloves too.
All right, and what about booties to wear over one's shoes? Do you have those?
No, sir.
You don't have those at all?
No.
That morning, did you ever see anyone at all videotaping that particular scene from the Los Angeles Police Department? The crime
No.
scene?
Cochran, do you have much more?
Just a little more, it might be a good time, and I'll be able to finish shortly after that, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a 10-minute comfort break. Please remember my admonition to you: don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, don't form any opinions about the case, don't conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you regarding the case. And if you'll just step back into the jury room, and we'll call you back in about 10 minutes. All the parties are present. Mr. Hodgman, Mr. Scheck, is there a matter that we need to resolve? Sure.
That's a sidebar, Your Honor.
Well, they don't count.
They don't.
They don't count. Let's have the jurors, please. Ronald Phillips is still on the witness stand on cross-examination. Detective Phillips, you're reminded you're still under oath. And Mr. Cochran, you may conclude your cross-examination.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. I will be doing that, Your Honor, this very morning. Detective Phillips, a few more questions of you, if I might. You had mentioned in response to one of Ms. Clark's questions that there was some measure of disappointment when you were taken off this case because you'd gotten up, for, among other things. Would that disappointment have been magnified in any way because the man who worked for you, Detective Furman, had known at least one of the victims in this case at some point prior to that?
Had none to do.
Objection, Your Honor. Objection, that's vague. No?
Well, it assumes facts not in evidence as
Had,
well.
had investigated, there has been tested. Well, let me state it, Your Honor. Would that
Ask him
level...
if he's aware of that first.
Right. I'll take care of it, Your Honor. With regard to the level of disappointment, I'm asking whether or not it will be magnified by the fact that at some point you learned that Detective Furman had investigated a call, at least in 1985, involving Nicole.
Hearsay, objection, assumes facts not in evidence, and whether that what's the relevance of what Detective Furman did to this witness's sense of disappointment or not.
It's sustained at this point on foundational grounds.
All right.
You need to establish
Certainly.
if that was in his mind at the time
Certainly.
he was told.
At some point, you became aware that Detective Furman had responded to a call back in 1985 at the Simpson residence. Isn't that correct?
After this case, yes, I was aware of that.
All right. And at any point, at any time, was your level of disappointment in having to turn the case over to robbery homicide at all magnified by any contact that any of the officers had had with the parties in this case before that? That's the question.
The disappointment in not handling this case would have been the same disappointment no matter what the case was. It had nothing to do with this case at all. We just had gotten up, we'd gone out to a crime scene. It was our case to investigate. It was taken away from us. There was disappointment that we weren't going to be able to investigate the case. It would have made no difference whose case or what case that was taken away from us.
All right. Okay, now I may have asked you this question, and I apologize if I did. With regard to the crime scene being, were you present when it was washed down, or can you tell us when that scene was washed down?
I was not present, sir.
Do you know when it was washed down?
No, I don't.
When you came back later that day on June 13th, had the blood been washed down at that point?
I never went back to the Bundy location. I was not at the Bundy location when the scene was broken down. I was at my office, and I never went back to the Bundy location that day.
All right. Do you know, or have you seen any records of the shoe sizes of the officers who had been at the Bundy scene? Was there a record kept of the officers' shoe sizes?
No, sir.
Of course, prior to your testimony here, you've not watched these proceedings on television, have you?
No, sir.
Did you ever participate in going back over to Rockingham with the photographer Rokar at all that morning?
No, sir.
It would be fair that the last time you saw him that day on June 13th was when he was at the Bundy location?
I don't recall seeing him anymore after that.
You didn't know. Now, with regard to the movement of evidence, whether intentionally or accidental, that's something that you try not to have. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if evidence is moved either accidentally or any other ways, you would tend to write a report and explain that. Isn't that correct? In the case you were handling?
It would depend.
This is irrelevant.
Case relevant, you know?
Overruled.
Let me answer
It
that.
would depend on the circumstances. It would depend on what was happening at the time. It would depend on what evidence was moved or why it was moved or who was moved. There be a whole litany of things that may have happened or may not have happened that might have wanted you to make a report.
But if you wanted to explain why evidence was moved, wouldn't be the best record would be to write a report as to what had actually happened. Isn't that correct?
If you thought the report was necessary to explain what you had done, yes.
In a perfect scene, a perfect crime scene, you'd want evidence to remain just as it was when you found it. Isn't that correct?
That's the ideal way, yes.
And that's one of the reasons that photographs are taken and pictures are taken almost immediately or soon thereafter, because evidence will tend to dissipate over time. Isn't that correct?
Well, you always take photographs before and after.
And one of the reasons, is it not, that you want to get the coroner out there, is that there are changes that take place in bodies over time. Isn't that correct?
Well, the body will begin to change, yes.
Yes. In other words, rigor mortis may set in. Is that correct?
That's true.
And you've been at crime scenes, have you not, when the coroner has arrived and taken a liver temperature of a particular body. Isn't that correct?
I've been there when the coroner's taken liver temperatures, yes.
And the liver temperature is one of the ways that the coroner can extrapolate or try and ascertain the time of death. Isn't that correct?
It's one of several ways, yes.
All right, and you're aware of the importance of that. Isn't that correct?
It's a factor that should be considered in, yes.
All right. Were you at that scene when the coroner finally arrived and when liver temperatures were taken in this case?
No, I was not.
Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Ms. Clark,
Thank you, Your Honor.
redirect.
Thank you. Detective Phillips, yesterday, Mr. Cochran was asking you questions about this special order number 21. Do you have a copy of it, sir?
Yes.
I'm going to put it up on the Elmo so the jury can see it, too. Okay, first, Jonathan, can you show the top? All right, that's the order we're talking about, is that right?
Yes.
And the subject matter is notifications to the coroner.
Yes.
All right, now dropping down to that first paragraph. Hold still. Okay. Where it says the investigating officer at the scene of a death, which requires notification to the coroner, shall make notification immediately upon determining that the death falls within the purview of the coroner's office. First of all, sir, tell us, does this mean only homicides?
I object to the form of that question. He can tell us what it means, not it was leading to suggest the way it's written.
Withdrawn, counsel's right. I'm sorry.
Rephrase the question, thank you.
Can you tell us what it means? What does it refer to?
Refers to any death, any scene of any death that comes under the purview of the coroner's office.
And what does that include, sir?
It includes deaths where doctors do not sign certificates within 20 days. It includes suicides. It includes homicides. It includes accidentals. Whenever an officer goes out and comes across a death,
Whether it's by criminal agency or not?
until we determine whether it is or not, yes.
So in all those cases, there's a requirement to notify the coroner?
Yes.
Now, dropping down to the second part of that paragraph. Actually, let me back up. It says, shall make the notification immediately upon determining that the death falls within the purview of the coroner's office. But then it goes on to say, if the coroner's not immediately needed at the scene.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Well, what this paragraph is telling you is that the investigating officer, who may not always be a detective, the investigating officer at a suicide may not be a detective. It may be a patrol officer who came across an obvious suicide. It may be a natural death that the doctor doesn't want to sign a death certificate. And we don't always have detectives roll on those calls. So the investigating officer at one of those situations would be the patrol officer who's investigating that call or investigating that death scene. And what they're telling you is that under these circumstances, to notify the coroner's office, to have the coroner's office come out and remove the body. And if the coroner's not immediately needed, the investigating officer should advise the coroner of an approximate time when the coroner may be needed.
Okay. And when would it be a situation where the coroner would not immediately be needed?
When the,
That question may be relevant too. It's not a suicide. These other things are nice, but they're
Overruled. You can answer the question.
what was the question again?
Can you give us an example of a situation where the coroner would not immediately be needed?
Well, it may be a suicide that the officers may have to do a small amount of investigation to see that it wasn't or was a suicide or wasn't a suicide. There may be some investigating, talking to family members, or trying to get a hold of a doctor to see if a doctor wanted to sign a certificate, if we could find that correct doctor. So not immediately means it may take those patrol officers, who are the investigating officers, an hour to get that information all put together.
What about the situation where it's a homicide?
Homicide's a different situation altogether,
And why is that?
because a homicide investigation requires the services of a specialized detective, a homicide detective, to come out to that crime scene.
And in that situation, if it is a homicide, is that an example also of where a coroner is not immediately needed?
Object to form that question, legal and suggestion.
Sustain Fred's question.
In the case of a homicide, is that a case where the coroner would be immediately needed?
No.
And why is that?
You have several things you have to do at a crime scene first. You have to, number one, talk to all the officers to find out what you have. You have to examine the crime scene. You have to measure your crime scene off. You have to make a crime scene sketch. You have to have photographs taken of that crime scene. You may have fingerprints needed to be taken at that crime scene. Several things need to be done before you bring a coroner's office in and attempt to move the bodies.
So it says in that event, when a coroner is not immediately needed, that the investigating officer shall advise the coroner of an approximate time when the coroner's deputy can respond. And if no time can be estimated, the investigating officer shall arrange to make second notification to the coroner when the response is appropriate.
That's where we get our first call and second call.
And is that what you did in this case?
Yes?
You made first notification at what time?
6:50,
And then you made the second notification to tell them to come straight out at what time?
8:08.
And in the second paragraph, sir, when circumstances indicate that the investigation of the death requires the expertise of a specialized investigator, for example, homicide detective, immediate notification to the coroner shall be made by the concerned.
I'm sorry, we're reluctant to object, as spirit of cooperation, but is this a question? We can read the document ourselves.
It is foundational. By the concerned specialized investigator who responds to the scene of the incident. Can you tell us what is the significance of that passage?
Well, in the first paragraph, they're explaining that this could be any type of death, that even a patrol officer may be investigating. It's natural or whatever. Then they're telling you when the circumstances indicate that it is a homicide and you need the expertise of a homicide detective. They're telling that patrol officer or that officer that's investigating that homicide or traffic collision, whatever it is, do not notify the coroner's office. Let the assigned homicide detective who's in charge of the case make the notifications, because he has all this work to do when he gets there.
So why is it important who makes notification to the coroner? First officer or the homicide detective who eventually is assigned to the case?
It's important because the coroner's office is then not left standing around doing nothing when they could be going to other calls to pick up other deceased. It kind of lets them make their arrangements. As an example, if...
No, sir, the question I'm asking is, so why is it important who makes notification to the coroner, the detective versus the patrol officer who first shows up?
Because the detective, when he shows up, he can evaluate the crime scene. He can tell how long it's going to take him, with his experience and his knowledge, how long it's going to take him to do this crime scene, to get it ready for the coroner's office to come. The patrol officer would have no idea how long it's going to take that detective to finish his crime scene investigation. So for him to make an estimate of time would benefit nobody.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell us, sir, what is the overall purpose of this special order number 21?
Object to the form of that, that is the chief's order. I'm not sure that Detective Phillips, with all his experience, is the best one to give us that. He's not the witness.
Well, this pretty much speak for itself.
Wait, Your Honor, no, what I want to know from this witness is what he understands. He understands what the problem is that's being addressed in this special order, and it doesn't speak for itself in that regard, because it was addressing a specific problem, and that's why it was issued.
It cross-references the manual, which this modifies, which it says it modifies, which has already been told to the jury.
And that does not speak for itself. If I can be permitted to elicit this answer, the court will see.
Briefly.
Thank you, Your Honor. What is the overall purpose for the issuance of this order? What problem was it seeking to address?
Well, I think that, on that particular question, that's not what you said you were approving, because what was in the chief's mind when he issued this order is not relevant in this case.
Overall.
Yeah.
Well, what it attempts to do is to eliminate the downtime of the coroner's office standing around at one crime scene for 4 or 5 hours when they could be doing something else at another area that is ready for them, so we don't have bodies and crime scenes being backed up all over the county of Los Angeles by one coroner's office sitting around for 4 or 5 hours at one crime scene where he could be picking up, I don't mean to be gross, but picking up 2 or 3 natural deceased and while he's standing around waiting for one crime scene to be done.
Okay. And if a coroner is standing around at one crime scene just waiting to be allowed into it to remove the bodies, what happens to other officers on other homicide scenes who are waiting for the coroner?
Overruled.
Well, then those crime scenes would begin to back up. We'd have officers standing around waiting for coroners to show up, and it would just become a domino effect. This whole idea is so that we have rapid response from the coroner's office. They can do their job, get out, and get to another area where they're needed, where other detectives or other officers are waiting for a coroner to show up at that location.
Now, sir, on the coroner's tape, when you were speaking to Mr. Willis, you told him that it was Mr. Simpson in that conversation. Do you remember that?
Yes?
Why? Why'd you tell him?
Well, because I did, number one, but number two is if I were to tell them that we had a double homicide in the Brentwood area, it's going to cause news media event regardless of who is involved. It's just we don't have double homicides in the Brentwood area very often. And so by telling him what we had and asking him for his cooperation and keeping it quiet, we would eliminate the press for as long as possible. So trying to make a point to him.
To let him know how important it was.
Yes.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Withdrawn. Sir, you indicated, I think, on cross-examination that there's a moonlighting job that you and Detective Furman both did.
Used to do, yes.
Used to do at one time. Were you working together when you did that? You
No.
and he would go to the job together, come home together?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay. It was.
That's 2.
It is 2. You know, that's okay. But you would. You didn't see each other then on the job there.
No.
Okay.
Oh, but I think you covered that as well on the direct.
On direct?
Excuse me, on cross, it was covered on cross. That they worked the same job, they did not work at the same time. What's the job?
I want to do it too. I'm getting very punchy. On.
It's been a lot.
Are there other, yes, have other officers, or do other officers also work that same job, sir?
Yes, I believe there was probably 15 of us that worked that location, different shifts. It was 24 hours around the clock.
What is this? order, Your Honor.
71, Peoples 71.
Thank you. If we could mark this as People 71, Your Honor. Can you see that on the monitor, sir?
Yes.
All right. Do you recognize what's being shown there?
Looks like the rear of 875 South Bundy and the Jeep that was parked in the driveway.
Okay. Now, was there room to walk between the Jeep and the fence?
Yes.
Was there room to park in the alley behind the Jeep?
Yes.
And was there room to park behind the Ferrari in the driveway?
Yes.
Now, you were, Can you cut the feed for this one, please?
I believe this is...
Thank you. This would be marked People's next in order, Your Honor, People 72.
All right, Peoples 72.
Sir, you indicated during cross-examination that you saw a menu. Do you recall testifying to that?
Yes, Mr. Cochran showed me something about a Pizza Man menu on a statement written by Detective Furman.
Okay. Now, in that statement that he showed you, has that been marked, Your Honor?
The statement? I don't believe
The
so.
report? Showing you what's been marked as D1023, sir. On the second page, after item number 5, it says,
Are you using this to refresh his recollection or just point out something?
I just want to point out something.
Seriously, otherwise he can read it to himself.
Have him read it to himself at this point.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, based on your reading of this, does this refer to one or two items?
2 items
Okay. And one is found where, according to this note?
on an upstairs copy.
This is, I'm reluctant to object, this is improper. She didn't ask him to remember his refresh. You can't just refer to his note. That's hearsay.
No, Your
Correct.
Honor, I'm clearing up what was dealt with on cross-examination.
I hate to do... No.
Let's work it out.
This clerk.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, there's a reference to a note on the upstairs coffee table Do you know anything about that?
No,
Did you ever see such a note on a coffee table?
no.
Okay, and then down here, there's a reference to a menu, it says pizza menu by female victim's left leg. Did you see that?
Well, I saw a menu by her left leg, and after looking at this, I thought it was a pizza menu, but I remember now that it was an Oriental menu from some Oriental type of restaurant. It wasn't a pizza menu.
And looking at the photograph that's now been marked People 72,
Yes?
do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, that was the Oriental menu that I was referring to, that I inadvertently thought that was referring to.
When you say that, you're referring to D 1023, the passage we were just looking at?
Yes.
Paragraph 5. All right, now, you saw the dog Cato at the Bundy scene. I think you testified earlier.
Yes?
Do you know of any way to check a dog's teeth to see if it had bitten someone 4 hours earlier?
The form of that question, Your Honor, is argumentative, and this calls for science that's outside without further foundation. It's outside the expertise of the officer.
This was,
I'm sorry?
Are you aware of any way to test a dog's teeth for having bitten somebody recently?
no, I didn't, that wasn't my question, Your Honor.
I like that question better.
Of course. Can I try again, Your Honor?
I like my question.
Should I answer yours?
Well, I'm not the lawyer. We'll try to, I'd like to try to let the lawyers try their own cases. I'm sorry, Ms. Clark.
Okay, thank you, Your
Ask
Honor.
your question,
I appreciate it. Thank you, Your Honor.
much as I'd like to.
Go ahead.
No.
No? Okay.
You do your job.
All right. Do you know of any way to check a dog's teeth to see if it had bitten someone 4 hours earlier?
No.
Did it occur to you to go and check emergency room medical records to see if a person who had just killed 2 people went and checked himself into the emergency room for a dog bite he'd gotten during the killing?
No, I did not.
Now, did you take photographs of the soles of the shoes of the first officers that were on the scene?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I have here a series of photographs I've shown to counsel. It'd be photographs, Your Honor, of soles of shoes.
All right, I'm going to have Mrs. Robertson get a black binder so we can put those in there.
Thank you very much.
All right. I take it you want these collectively as People's 73?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. May I approach?
You may.
Showing you the items that have now been collectively marked as People 73. Thank you. Do you recognize?
Yeah, we can put them in single order and then flip through them.
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize these photographs?
I took the photographs at West Los Angeles detectives.
At the at the detectives' area?
Yes.
Can you tell us when these Polaroids were taken?
They were taken over a period of several days. All the officers obviously don't work the same shift, the same day, all at the same time. So I left word in the watch commander's office that these particular officers, the next time they reported to work, to come up and see me. And then I came in early to meet them and took the photographs of their shoes. So it was over a period of days.
But was it within a week of the homicides?
Yes.
Is there someone who
Can you Elmo them one page at a time? The only problem is the protective covers on those things has a bad reflective. Let's try it. All right. Is it possible you can just remove the reflective cover just for the purpose of elmowing? I mean, just open up the flap? Yeah. Better. All right, Ms. Clark, how about if we have Mr. Fairtlow just run through and show them a brief shot of each one of these?
That's good. Thank you, Ron.
All right. All right, let's see the next set.
Page 543.
All right.
Page 544. First half. Page 544, second half. Page 545, first half. Page 545, second half. Page 546, first half. Page 546, second half. Page 640, first half. Page 640, second half. Page 861. Two prints on. Page 862. Two prints on.
Yes.
Sir, have you ever heard of a flavor of ice cream called chocolate chip cookie dough?
Yes.
And did you check the ice cream that you found in the Ben & Jerry's cup inside 875 South Bundy to see if there were clumps of chocolate chip cookie dough in it?
No.
When you went into the Rockingham location, sir, you said you went in through the rear door with
Yes.
Arnell. Did you happen to notice whether she went to punch in an alarm keypad when you first entered?
No, I didn't.
Does that mean she didn't do it?
I didn't see her do it. I have no idea whether she did it or not.
Could have, you just don't know.
I don't know.
You indicated, I think, sir, that there were you counted 28 police officers at the crime scene at 875 South Bundy?
Well, there was
Different names?
28 names on a log that said at some time or another they arrived.
Does that mean that there were 28 officers at that scene at the same time?
Could be. I have no idea. I wasn't keeping track of every single officer's movements and how many were there and at any particular time.
Let me ask you this, sir. Was there do you know what I mean by the term shift change?
Yes?
Was there a change of shift from the time that you first went to the location of 875 South Bundy at approximately 2:10 a.m. till 10 a.m. in the morning?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Well,
How's that work?
The morning watch shift gets off at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and the day watch shift comes on, has their roll call at 6:30 in the morning, and usually hits the street between 7 and 7:15 in the morning. So that's when that change would occur at that particular time.
So some officers leave at 7:15, go off duty, and others come on?
Yes,
And that occurred between 2 and 10 in the morning on June the 13th?
It's legally suggested that in this situation, they may not have done, they may have worked overtime, so I object to the former question.
Why don't you rephrase the question?
Okay. Then was there a shift change between 2 in the morning and 10 in the morning on June the 13th?
yes,